All right, y'all, welcome in. Salt City Hoops live postcast. Got a win to talk about today. So we're going to be enjoying that today. We got a little fun action today, some interesting quirks, some things to analyze, and of course, along with any sort of analysis of a basketball game, we got to crack open a 13% beer here. So let's try to open this one. This one's got a wax seal on it, so I'm trying to crack this one open. This is Of course, I forgot to do this beforehand. This has got a thick wax seal on it, so I'm trying to wedge my bottle opener in there. There we go. Okay, this comes to us from Ools Brewing in Colorado. Here, we do a lot of good barrel aged stuff that has a lot of flavor to it. And this is their coffee and vanilla barrel treat. This is part of their barreled treat series, their barrel aged imperial stout series, and this is 12.3%. Bourbon barrel-aged imperial stout with coffee and vanilla. I'm not the biggest fan of coffee in my stouts. I think coffee actually goes better with... you would think that coffee's dark. It goes with dark beer. But I do think that the bitterness of coffee, that sort of flavor, goes better with lighter beers. If you ever have a cream ale or even some of your interesting lagers, if they have more of a crisp, lighter finish, adding some coffee aroma and flavor can really make an interesting beer that way. And I do think that stouts and porters, they already have the caramel in them, right? You don't really need to put a lot of other dark flavors with them. And I find that coffee can sometimes overwhelm them. But if you're doing a barrel-aged imperial stout series and you're adding vanilla or other conditions on it, then the coffee is not going to be quite so overwhelming. I haven't had this beer yet though, so let's give it a try, and then we'll get into chatting Utah Jazz here. Welcome in. This is as I mentioned, this is the Salt City Hoops live postcast and beer. So we got to do a little beer talk as everyone kind of filters in here for the conversation today. So let's give this a try. Oh yeah, that's very coffee forward. But finishes with a nice vanilla, and we're gonna enjoy that today. 12.3%. That's actually not a bad finish, even though it's very forward with coffee. So we'll see how this tastes as I continue drinking this going forward. I did also just finish a Westfax Brewing Company American Porter, and that they are from Lakewood, Colorado. So I'm all about my Colorado beer today. So, Jazz win, 108-100. And now I always have to check the standings to see are we a 500 basketball team again? To see if we've gotten there. Let's see. What is our NBA standings at right now? Are we at 500 or not? Yes, we are exactly at 500. We have currently sitting at the 10th seed in the West. But we do have Portland going down to the wire against Toronto. They're down by 5 and starting the fourth quarter here. But even if Portland wins, they will still be behind the Jazz. The Jazz sit at 500 right now after their win against the Mavericks tonight, and 3 games behind third, right? So the Jazz sit 4, and the Raptors are involved in this. They sit 4 games ahead of the 6th worst record in the league, and they sit 3 games behind third in the West. This is just a morass that we have going on for the Western Conference and this sort of 500 pack. So the trade deadline's coming up. We'll talk about what it means to be sellers and what it might mean for the Jazz, and if they can actually get down to a quite low seed, a low record to get a decent draft pick, or if we're talking, playing games in some playoff series. I've been pretty vocal that if the Jazz are not a top 3 to 5 worst record in the NBA, then the lottery odds are so smoothed out that it doesn't really matter. I think a difference between the odds of the 7th pick versus the 13th best odds is 4 or 5%, and that's just not worth the trade-off of just trying to play to win basketball games. So we're here now, though. We got a game to talk about. Jazz win 108-100. You'll see my second byline there is that the game is defined by quirky defense by both teams. I should mention the first byline, which is Luka did not play. Luka has an injury that will take him a few games to get back from. So The Jazz know all too well, based on the playoff series last year, you can definitely be scared of a Luka Doncic less Dallas Mavericks team, coached by Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd was miserable in Milwaukee. I think he was trying to show too much bravado and had some weird defensive strategies, but he really does know how to really craft offensive and defensive strategies especially when he's playing shorthanded. I think Doc Rivers also shows an acuity at this. Whenever Doc Rivers teams have been shorthanded, they really do deploy interesting strategies that can really muck up a team. A lot of people give Ty Lue a lot of credit for this, but a lot of the strategies that Ty Lue does, I feel like he's just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks, and he will deploy strategies that are just obvious fails way too often, whereas I think Kidd and Rivers really do show an acuity for, hey, we're down our best player, well, let's just lean into what we're good at, and if we lose by 40 points, it's going to be because, we'd rather lose by 40 points trying a strategy that we think we might win the game than lose by 15 just because we didn't have our star player, right, and just playing the way we normally do. So the Mavericks pretty much all game, and especially the second half, I would say it was like Kidd started to do it in the first half, but really went into it in the second half, was every defensive possession for the Mavericks started out in a zone, but eventually when the Jazz started to get into their shit offensively, they would say, like, it was almost like they had a hive mind of when they said, okay, well, now we're playing man, right? And they, with that sort of zone defense and the Jazz trying to filter it out, the Jazz would get some mismatches by the time the Mavericks said, like, okay, we're going to play zone. But then the Mavericks are smart enough to say, like, okay, if you had Markkanen posting up Dinwiddie, we're going to send double teams, right? Like, they had a great defensive hive mind out there. They were executing it great when Dwight Powell was on the floor. I thought when Dwight Powell was on the floor, it actually made it easier for the Jazz to exploit things. It's funny how these defensive centers, it's like and he's got some good offensive skill too, especially around the rim, but like if he doesn't have range and you're kind of just relying on him to not guard in space, you're relying on him to guard at the rim, it makes the defense a little bit more predictable. So when they were playing situations with Davis Bertans being the tallest player on the court, or Dorian Finney-Smith as the tallest player on the court, Finney-Smith played 41 minutes tonight. Then they were executing this weird hybrid zone man shit. And of course, without Walker Kessler on the floor, the Jazz become much easier to match up against. I think, they didn't say it, but I think Kelly Olynyk only playing 15 minutes tonight seemed like a little bit of a minutes restriction for him. So the Jazz, while they started Olynyk, Markkanen, and Kessler, huge supersized starting lineup, Olynyk only playing 15 minutes and not closing either half for Utah, kind of allows Dallas to get into a situation where maybe the only big man on the court is Jared Vanderbilt, right? Or it's Lauri Markkanen. And yeah, like you can feel confident putting Dorian Finney-Smith on either Markkanen or Vanderbilt. And if your second biggest player is, a Josh Green type who played 38 minutes tonight, you could put him on Lauri Markkanen or Jared Vanderbilt and those types of larger players. And Lauri Markkanen, he's evolved into a matchup problem for every opponent, and not just, he's got Josh Green, a smaller player, on him. It's more that, okay, they're able to put capable defenders around and just sort of fly around a little bit. So that zone man defense really fucked up Utah a lot in the second half. Utah was up by 19 at one point, and then Dallas chipped all the way back to getting within 5 or 6 points in the fourth quarter. They went on a 12-0 run in the third quarter to bring a 19-point lead all the way down to, I think it was 7 or 8. So if I can do math, that would be a 7-point lead. So, you're sitting there with a 19-point lead against no Luka Doncic. You're thinking we're gonna do it, right? And got to give a whole lot of credit to Dallas for really, really, really working hard to make offense difficult on Utah. Utah did not have the greatest offensive performance today. Their shooting accuracy was a little poor. They didn't shoot many corner threes, but they all missed. So they were 0 of 5 from the corners. today, so hopefully you expect a couple of those to go in. But the offense, like, it was getting kind of mucked up. And even though the Mavericks were not playing with a traditional rim protector for much of the game, by the way, Dwight Powell, Dallas low -12 today. All other players for Dallas were pretty solid today, but Powell was a -12. That was a difference in today's game. But without a traditional rim protector out there, the Jazz still shot poorly at the rim. And they shot. They weren't shooting enough at the rim. They were being deterred from getting. That's what I'm interpreting my notes that I took today. They were not getting to the rim as much as you would hope, right? They were getting kind of stonewalled in the mid range, and Jordan Clarkson can be kind of guilty of that as a whole. We've watched Jordan Clarkson and Colin Sexton and these guys. I'm sorry, Colin Sexton's the opposite of this, but Jordan Clarkson, Malik Beasley, they will beat their man off the dribble and then just like stop in the mid-range instead of really getting all the way to the hoop and really putting pressure on the rim. And I really thought that today was a missed opportunity if they're not playing a traditional rim protector for much of the game. And Colin Sexton, God bless him, like he always is putting pressure on the rim, and I thought today could have been a good game for him, except he was miserable defensively on Utah's interesting defensive strategy, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Utah's defensive approach, but Colin Sexton is the only guy that could really like put that regular pressure on the rim, and the other Jazz ball handlers just weren't. I thought Mike Conley was doing a little bit better than he normally does, getting layups and putting pressure there like he used to do. So that was nice from Conley a little bit, but in general, like the Jazz just were not shooting very much at the rim. They were kind of relying on their three-point shooting. They were relying a little bit more mid-range than they usually do, but they shot pretty well at the rim, 74% of the rim, which you would expect with no rim protector out there, and they shot okay from three. So that's the Mavericks defense against the Jazz offense, which, like I said, no traditional rim protector for much of the game for Dallas, and even with that, the Jazz struggled getting to the rim, and that's a lot of credit to the Mavericks, both combination of their interesting defensive style with their zone-ish defense that really confused the Jazz ball handlers, but even when the ball handlers for the Jazz committed to running a play, getting a screen set, and making action happen, they would find themselves swarmed kind of like in the middle of the mid-range and just kind of stop, right? And so they would have to kick the ball out, or they would shoot a mid-range shot, or try to figure out what sort of activity to get there. And so you had a really weird shot diet for Utah, and this would have been, I think, the last thing I'll mention about the Jazz offense today as a team perspective, and I think I'm kind of complaining about this every game now, is when you run into a quirky defense like this who isn't trying to play you straight up, and they have some good defenders out there, but there are some weaker defenders on the floor at all times. Dinwiddie's not a great defender, et cetera, et cetera. This is a game where you can say, hey, Jordan Clarkson's a great isolation player. Love having him. He's a great bailout guy. Malik Beasley was shooting very difficult shots all game today, but the whole point of Lauri Markkanen and his trajectory in the NBA from when he was drafted out of Arizona, I'm not talking about right now, I'm talking about the whole point of Lauri Markkanen as a basketball player is matchup problem with the guys that you're sending out to guard him, right? And so even if he's matched up against Dorian Finney-Smith, I'm not asking Lauri Markkanen to say like, hey, I want him isolationed at the top of the key. I think that's not a great use of Lauri Markkanen's skill set, but I do wish you would find a way to initiate action via Lauri Markkanen, and in the same way, and we'll get to this, I promise, that Utah was forcing Dallas to say, hey, your best player is Spencer Dinwiddie, we know that, we're going to make other players make a play. I think this would have been a great situation to put a ball in Lauri Markkanen's hand and run plays where he's dribbling the basketball. I'm not asking him to isolate, and I know he's not the fastest guy or the greatest ball handler in the world, but I do think that by putting the ball in his hands, the Dallas zone approach kind of warps a little bit. All of a sudden, they have to think like, hey, their best player has the basketball. We need to warp our zone in kind of that direction and give help to whoever is guarding him, right? He can shoot threes over anybody we have on the court right now, including Dorian Finney-Smith. So I don't design basketball plays for a living. I'm not a super expert in this, and just seeing Lauri Markkanen end up with another game where he has less than 3 assists. Today he had 0 assists. I think it's a missed opportunity to force a defense say, hey, look, we have an amazing player and we're going to get him the basketball, and we need to figure out how to get Lauri Markkanen the basketball, either starting possessions with him or making him touch the ball on every possession. I think that's the primary point I'm trying to get to is when you're getting in a muck situation, and Will Hardy mentioned after the game, you have players who dribble the ball 5, 6, 7 times. They should innately feel when they have the ball too long and make the next play. I understand that. I think that we've now evolved into a point where if any of the ball handlers have the ball and they do that 5, 6, 7 dribbles, and Will Hardy's preaching, hey, you need to feel when you have the ball too long. I think the number one thing you can look to if you're confused about how the defense is playing you with this Dallas zone-ish defense isn't so much what's the next play I can make. Sometimes it should be, where's Lauri? How can I get not just the ball to the guy who's standing next to me on the perimeter, like that feels very college basketball-ish, right? Just pass the ball to the other guy on the perimeter and let him dribble the ball 6 times before he throws up a bad shot. Sometimes in the NBA it should be, where's Lauri? Like, can I have him set a screen for me? Just bring Lauri's man into the action, and if they switch and I can get Lauri on a smaller guy, like, we're going to do that. If they don't switch and play me straight up, then Lauri's a 7-footer and he's setting a screen, and he's a pretty solid screen setter. He's not the best in the world, but he's still huge, and maybe I can make a play off of that. I do think that there's, like, Lauri Markkanen ends up with 29 points every night, and it's wonderful, and you can't complain about what Lauri does when he has the ball, and I'm sitting there going, more. I want more, right? Like that Kylo Ren meme, like more. And so when you're playing a defense that is really mucking you up, I'm begging to these ball handlers to say, instead of making a play for me, like I'm a skilled player, I can score the basketball, just give it to Lauri and see, or bring Lauri's man up into a screen and see what happens, and see how the defense reacts. Because I guarantee you they will react stronger to Lauri than they will to anybody else on the court. So, Jazz win though. Decent offense today, not the greatest offensive rating in the world today, but it was pretty solid. And instead, though, I think the Jazz defense is probably the most interesting, weird thing to mention today. No Luka Doncic. Obviously, Jalen Brunson has moved on to New York. So pretty much the whole game, the Jazz are deploying this soft double pretty much the whole game on Spencer Dinwiddie from about the second quarter on. Maybe not so much the first quarter. Dinwiddie played at, 41 minutes today? So it was a large part of the game. 42 minutes for Spencer Dinwiddie today. I don't even know who played. Yeah, it was so the Mavericks have this rookie Jaden Hardy, who is he's a second round pick, and Jaden Hardy has really come on of late. And I was surprised that with no Luka Doncic, that he didn't get more than the 6 minutes that he had today. In a recent, he's had a few good spells, and Mavericks fans have been talking him up a bit. He has not played very much in the past 4 games, but he had in a loss to Portland, he went 8 of 17 for 25 points, and he played 10 minutes before that. And then he had a stretch of playing 4 games of minutes, 17 minutes, 27 minutes, 21 minutes, 15 minutes. I don't know if Spencer Dinwiddie or somebody else was out those games, but Jaden Hardy as a rookie was getting a point. He's a point guard, a burly point guard. I thought he might get some more run today, but instead it was Dinwiddie playing 42 minutes and the Jazz deploying we're going to soft double Spencer Dinwiddie every time. And Dinwiddie ends up 35 points, 4 rebounds, 8 assists. And in listening to Hardy's comments post-game, first of all, he mentioned, like, hey, we tried to do this against Damian Lillard last game as well. It just didn't work as well because Damian Lillard was getting to the rim. And all of my frustration about how the Jazz deployed this defense, I think, went down about 50% because it was clear that all Will Hardy cared about, especially when Kess was not on the floor, which Kessler played 25 minutes today, 14 points, 11 rebounds, 5 blocks for Kessler in just 25 minutes today. But in those other 23 minutes, the Jazz don't have a traditional rim protector on the floor. I don't think Olynyk played maybe just a couple minutes without Kessler today. Again, minutes limit for Olynyk probably. But this soft double, what would happen is Dinwiddie, he's a great passer. He's a good basketball IQ guy, and he's feeling when the double is just a little too aggressive, but he's also watching when the third guy, the guy who's supposed to help the double team, the guy who's coming over to do the double team, obviously you need a player covering his ass to guard whoever he was guarding. And so Dinwiddie's waiting for the double to come when the helper is not ready to back that guy up. And he was finding wide open three-point shooters the entire game, or Dinwiddie was finding good driving lanes away from the double, and Dinwiddie knows immediately where the wide open three is. Or if the Jazz are actually doing a good job at covering the first pass available, the pass was always going to be there. We had a lot of situations where the Jazz were able to force some turnovers off of quirky passing, but definitely in the third and fourth quarter, the Mavericks started to figure out how not to throw the ball directly in the hands of Jazz players on this double team strategy, and so you would have Dinwiddie getting the ball to a player to actually receive the pass. And while that player was immediately covered, the Mavericks are too well coached. Like, they were moving the ball very, very quickly to the second, third guy after that. And it requires so much communication and effort that, and Colin Sexton was guilty of a lot of this. You saw Malik Beasley getting lost a lot of it. It only took 2 or 3 more passes to find a wide open three-point shooter, right? And a lot of it does have to do with the Mavericks personnel. Obviously, Josh Green going 1 of 6 from 3 today, 4 of 12 overall. They were obviously doubling off of Josh Green as much as they possibly could. But they were doubling off of Tim Hardaway. They were doubling off of Dorian Finney-Smith. They were doubling off of Reggie Bullock. And so Davis Bertans, obviously. So the Mavericks, if you take away Dinwiddie 6 of 11, right, and a lot of that was off the dribble or off of offensive rebounds, Dinwiddie earned his 35 points. You can't really take umbrage with a lot of his 35 points, except you can probably point to 10 to 15 of those points being defensive breakdowns, whatever. But largely, as I'm looking at these cast of characters who are shooting threes for the Mavericks, you're going to expect a little bit more out of Tim Hardaway than shooting 1 of 7 from 3. Tim Hardaway had some wide open threes today, especially from the corner, that he bricked badly. And I don't recall him being this bad of a three-point shooter. Davis Bertans 1 of 5 from 3 today, and a lot of those were open looks. And I know Bertans can be hot and cold here and there from 3, but that is... you can expect more from that. And then Reggie Bullock and Dorian Finney-Smith were getting hot late, and they were getting wide open looks. And then you look at the shot profile for the Mavericks here, and over half of their shot attempts are from 3, which is an insane quantity. And it's certainly a strategy, because on the other hand, only 23% of their shots came at the rim. The Jazz were, in hearing Hardy's comments post-game, it was like that's all he cared about was don't foul them, don't put them at the line, and don't let them shoot at the rim. We're going to just, let's see if they can shoot a bunch of shots from deep on the road. And if they can, I think our offense can keep up with them. And it almost didn't. And I was very, very frustrated with the amount of open threes that were given up, because I don't think the Jazz have the personnel to fly around the court like that. Right, and you did have a couple good possessions, and you did end up with the ball getting out of Dinwiddie's hands a lot. I love watching Josh Green shoot threes against you, right? He's just not going to be a consistent three-point shooter. But so 1 of 6 from 3 from Josh Green I would have expected, but I'm going to expect better three-point shooting from everybody else on the roster. If Hardaway makes 2 more threes and Bertans makes 1 more, then this is a win for the Mavericks. And I don't like having games come down to three-point shooting luck like that. If it's a normal shot diet of moderately contested threes and then they shoot crazy from deep, it's whatever, right? I think the Jazz faced it against the Mavericks in the playoffs last year, where the Mavericks had an inordinate amount of threes being made by poor shooters, or they were shooting contested threes, and a lot of those were going down. Tonight was watching a bunch of wide open threes get hoisted up, and you're just praying they didn't go in. So look, we'll look at the tape, right, and say, hey, this is how, if we need to deploy that sort of doubling defense on a player who can light us up like that. And I thought there was a great question in the post game. Was this reactionary to Kyrie Irving and Damian Lillard? And Hardy, I don't think we exactly deployed this defense exactly against Damian Lillard as aggressively as we did against Spencer Dinwiddie tonight. I do think this is the kind of thing you kind of work towards, right? And say, like, hey, do we have the personnel who can kind of figure this out? I'm very vocal on the record by saying if your perimeter defenders can't get it done and you're resorting to doubling, I'd rather just put a long body on a ball handler, right? That's kind of the first line of defense that I would have, is to say, I'm fine switching Walker Kessler onto Spencer Dinwiddie, and Kessler had two amazing blocks when he was isolationed up against Spencer Dinwiddie. One was a terrific block from behind, easy, and then the second amazing block was called a foul when it turned out that Spencer Dinwiddie got fouled by the rim. He stuffed the ball against the rim, and Kessler got a piece of it. Really sketchy foul call there. So Kessler, I just thought, yeah, I'm okay putting my quick-footed, tall guy guarding some of these guards. And if that turns out to be a total disaster for, a 3-4 minute stretch, then okay, let's go to the more aggressive doubling schemes and stuff. So I prefer giving my big guys a chance before I go to a doubling scheme that puts pressure on all of your players on defense to get those rotations pinpoint accurate. And it really turns a guy like Colin Sexton into a liability, where I mentioned earlier that I thought that Colin Sexton was a guy who would be perfect for really attacking this small Mavericks lineup that is trying to do a zone man thing. A guy like Colin Sexton, who, unlike Jordan Clarkson, is not going to meander his way into step back threes or mid-range shots or kind of draw some weird fouls. Colin Sexton says, like, who's in front of me? I'm going to kick your ass. Right? And if you don't have a rim protector out there, I'm going to get layup after layup after layup. But defensively, he was a nightmare because Sexton doesn't have the mental skills to keep up with that sort of aggressive rotations, right? He was the one most often getting exposed by Dinwiddie having his eyes all over the court, right? So Sexton would double when the man who was going to help Sexton wasn't ready to help Sexton, right? Or when Dinwiddie had the ball in a very non-threatening area of the court, Sexton would send like an aggressive double when it just really was uncalled for. Or if Sexton was the helper of the guy giving the double team, Sexton was not timing that help correctly, right? And so he ended up double teaming like a guy who didn't have the ball at one point. It became a little sketchy on that front. And so I'm not a fan of some of these David strategies on defense when if you play them straight up, and frankly, if you play Walker Kessler for 35 minutes like he deserves, I think you would have had just as normal of a chance at beating the game. I don't think you were going to lose to a 50-burger to Spencer Dinwiddie, although I do respect the attempt. I respect saying, hey, this is a game we're probably going to win. We might be increasing the degree of difficulty on this win, but we're going to learn some real basketball today. And we're going to try to see like what happens if we deploy the strategy all game. So I respect it. It just is, as a Jazz fan trying to win the basketball game, sometimes I got a little frustrated. So I take a sip of beer here. We'll run down the lineup of who's playing. Of course, I read 1,000 words on Talen Horton-Tucker and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and they both are DNP CDs today. Of course, the Jazz are fully healthy, so with Olynyk only playing 15 minutes, he still played the 15 minutes that you would expect Alexander-Walker or Horton-Tucker to get. And so you saw no minutes out of them. Ochai Agbaji is still reliably picking up those 18 minutes off the bench. I thought his defense was fine. He committed four really. I thought three of his four fouls were frustrating. The fourth was he got called for an offensive foul on a screen that was so soft. Don't think that was necessarily deserved. Of course, Rudy Gay, I thought he doesn't shoot the ball well at all, but he was actually pretty reliable off the bench as a rebounder and I thought a pretty decent table setter at his position. Jared Vanderbilt, interesting guy, 7 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, kind of a chaos agent when he gets put out there. I just thought with Walker Kessler having an amazing game when he was out there, I thought Kessler definitely deserved to see what would happen if, okay, let's play him straight up and have Walker Kessler guard, Josh Green in the corner and play like the Rudy Gobert style defense, right? And make Josh Green hit 3-pointers and have Kessler guard the paint. So I respect Hardy not giving us a dose of that, I guess, again. But I do think Kessler can also guard in space. Lauri Markkanen was our MVP today. 29 points, 5 rebounds, 0 assists. I've already talked pretty extensively about why that 0 assists is a thing and why I think it could improve. 4 of 8 from 3 today. Just the efficiency. Whenever he shoots the ball, I think it's going in, right? And every other player that we've had over the Jazz over the past few years, even Donovan Mitchell, Don, I would need him to be hot for me to feel like, all right, Donovan's got it tonight. With Lauri Markkanen, I just feel like every shot's going in, right? Contested, whatever, it's going in. His efficiency at the rim is just unbelievable. Whenever he's around the rim, I'm just like, that shit's going in, and it might be an and one. I love Lauri Markkanen's efficiency. It's like this great safety blanket to have going forward. And I do agree with Tony Jones' assessment of him is he's not a first banana, but he might be at a point in the NBA in a year or two where he is literally the best second banana in the league, right? And so you have the Clippers, you can have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Those are both first banana players. And a guy like Lauri Markkanen could be the best possible second, third banana play off of, an all-star guard that you can have in the entire NBA. He's really evolved. He's so reliable, so efficient. Love watching him. He was great today. Olynyk was fun. Nice having Olynyk out there, frankly. I love that starting lineup. Size with Markkanen, Olynyk, and Kessler. I loved his passing. Olynyk had a great 3-pointer today. A couple good assists. A couple bad turnovers. Couple bad fouls. That's the Olynyk experience. And Mike Conley was terrific setting the table today with 11 assists, 4 steals. And Conley and Clarkson, I got to get, we shit on their defense a lot. Today was a great example of the Jazz deploying an interesting defense and letting their bad defenders like Mike Conley and Jordan Clarkson play more of a chaos agent role, where it was, hey, we need you guys to run around. We need you guys to find their perimeter guys, find the open, see where the ball is, and just run to open space. And they found themselves the ball hitting them in the face, right? And getting the steal. And so you had 4 steals from Mike Conley today, 3 steals from Jordan Clarkson, and a couple of those steals were you would have a Maverick player I guess you could just say Maverick. You would see a Maverick get the ball with a little bit of an advantage if he took a dribble. Okay, so the Jazz rotation is a little bit late. I'm Dorian Finney-Smith or I'm Reggie Bullock. Not typical ball handling dudes say look, I got a lane to the rim. Walker Kessler's out on the floor. Jared Vanderbilt's not a rim protector. I'm going to take a dribble in. And you'd have a guy like Malik Beasley or Jordan Clarkson or Mike Conley just throw a swipe in there. And these poor ball handlers, they got their pockets picked. And so I do think that those steals were emblematic of what they were trying to do today. Is to say, if you are in a position where you can just make a swipe at a ball, just fly around the court more, right? And that is more of a David defense strategy that I do think would be more applicable when you can't have Walker Kessler on the floor. And so I think that was appreciated today. Clarkson did not shoot well today, but he had 7 rebounds. I mentioned the 3 steals. I thought this was actually, I did not mind Jordan's shot selection. I thought he missed some rim attempts. He was only 1 of 4 from 3 today, and he had the most free throw attempts on the team today with 6 free throws. So I appreciated Jordan Clarkson, if not the most efficient game from him today. And the last guy we should mention is probably going to be, it's literally the last guy I haven't mentioned, is Malik Beasley, who hit a couple wildly contested 3-pointers, 5 of 11 from 3 today, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 4 fouls, 30 minutes for Malik Beasley, who played a lot in relief of Kelly Olynyk, who I mentioned only played the 15 minutes. So Malik, a couple of those shots don't go in, that game looks a lot worse. But he hit a couple really tough shots, and I think this is what contenders need, man. If you're a contender and you think like, hey, I need to win a title this year, I got a first-round pick burning a hole in my pocket, Malik Beasley is a guy who could swing very clutch playoff games with his shot making. And not in the Jordan Clarkson style of like, all right, Jordan Clarkson's always going to shoot a contested shot. It's like when Malik Beasley gets a wide open shot, he's a great relocator. He knows how to get open, especially when he's playing alongside the Jazz's best players, right? Malik Beasley finds himself wide open all the time because he knows the angles, he knows the feel, good basketball IQ, he knows how to get open, he knows how to come off screens. And so if you put him on another contending team where he is playing alongside great players, like if he's playing alongside a Giannis, playing alongside a LeBron James, like he is going to find open shots all the time. And I think that's worth a first-round pick if you're trying to win a title this year. And so I do disagree with the idea that, hey, Malik Beasley, we should just take what we should get from him. I think his skill set is just way too valuable to just say, like, fuck it, trade him now. I do think you should keep Malik Beasley, pick up his team option next year if you really need to, trade him in the offseason if you feel like that's necessary. I don't think it's so urgent to just, like, trade him now for whatever you can get. I think he has contending playoff series swinging skill level, and I would be very disappointed to see him get traded for a disappointing return, frankly. So that's the last I'll mention on the Jazz. If you're in the YouTube, you can drop a comment if you want. If you're on the Spaces, you can ask to speak. This is a open thing. I'll take a sip of beer. If not, we'll catch the end of Blazers. Catch the end of the Blazers Raptors game here, or is that already over? That might be over in the time we've been talking. Yeah, Toronto gets the 18-point victory on the road against Portland. So Toronto gets a good win. Toronto's on a little bit of a streak. Not quite a streak per se, but they're winning more games than they have been. So all of a sudden, like that bottom 5, bottom 6, level of attainable for the lottery might be there, but the Jazz also get the needed win today, and we had a lot of fun watching it. So that is that's the Jazz. That's the Salt City Hoops live postcast and beer. I'm enjoying this 13%er. A little bit more coffee flavor than I would appreciate, but hey, it's delicious. It's got the vanilla. It's an imperial stout. I'm having some fun with it. So I'll sign off. Hang out with y'all on Twitter. Thank you guys all for being here. And let's see here. We'll catch you on the next one. All right. Have a good night, everybody.